Whether you're a skeptic or a believer, join me, Rob McConnell, as together we'll investigate the world of the paranormal and the science of parapsychology here on the X-Zone Radio TV show on XZBN and the X-Zone TV channel on Simul TV. Since 1990, the X-Zone Radio TV show has been the place where people dare to believe and dare to be heard. Together, we'll investigate UFOs, aliens, ghosts, Bigfoot, psychic phenomenon, lake monsters, conspiracy theories, government cover-ups, the truth embargo, alien abductions, ESP, haunted locations from around the world, and so much more. With over 28 years of broadcasting and more than 4,500 individual guests, the X-Zone is truly a place where fact is fiction and fiction is reality, as evidenced by the credibility, integrity, and professionalism of the guests that we bring to our international audience. If you have seen a UFO, had a close encounter, seen a ghost, Bigfoot, lake monster, or a story that you would like to share or have investigated, contact me, Rob McConnell, by sending me your email to xzone@xzoneradiotv.com, or you can call toll-free 1-800-610-7035, extension 143, and on Skype, X-Zone Radio TV. For more information on the X-Zone Radio TV show with yours truly, Rob McConnell, visit www.xzoneradiotv.com or www.xzonetvchannel.com or simultv.com and xzbn.net. Until next we meet here in the X-Zone from our broadcast center and studios in Hamilton, Ontario, Canada, always remember, X-Zone Nation, keep your eyes to the sky and your heart in the light.
Hi, everyone. Sending you love, light, and magical vibrations from the Mystics, Oracle, and Divination Show. I'm your host, Cooch Daniels, a lifelong professional intuitive reader and author. I've recently, just early this month, had my Oracle deck, Sacred Mysteries, the Chakra Oracle, released for distribution, and I'm very excited. But even so, I'm even more excited to be diving deeper into learning about oracles and how they work with my special guest that I'm going to be interviewing on my show. Right now, I'd like to introduce you to someone who has a visionary view of divination and someone whose work and writing I greatly admire. His name is Wald Amberstone, and he has worked brilliantly with the tarot. He has the Reader Studio, and it's a huge tarot convention in New York City. And he and his wife, Ruth Ann, wrote a book called The Secret Language of the Tarot. Hi, Wald.
Hey, Cooch, how are you?
I'm feeling really excited and so happy that you could join me tonight.
I'm really, really glad to be here.
So I've introduced your book, The Secret Language of Tarot, and so I've got a really big question about that. What secret were you talking about in your book? What was the secret that you wanted people to know?
Well, what seems like a secret when you don't know it is actually fairly simple when you do. And that is that the bits and pieces of the imagery that make up a card each have their own significance that is hidden in plain sight. So it's very easy to overlook something if you don't know what you're looking for. And my job in the book was to point out the things to look for that make the card significant in 100 different ways. Instead of one gestalt, instead of one complete image that gives you an overall impression, there are many, many, many little bits and pieces that have their own universe of meaning. And those are things that people don't normally know much about, because to my best of my knowledge, not very much is written about them. So I wrote about some of them. And it should make the card more interesting, more powerful, more useful, and overall more fun.
So can someone who doesn't understand the tarot, and by the way, for people who are just learning about the tarot, there are 78 tarot cards, 22 are major cards, and 56 are minor cards, and they all work together for people to do readings to get insight and more clarity about their path and directions. That's one of the uses of them. But Wald, do you think that people who don't know anything about the tarot, that they could pick up your book and learn how to read cards? Are you focusing on something that's more esoteric?
Well, actually, the material in the book is not particularly esoteric. It is focusing on what could be called a kind of universal symbolism. There is a host of reference works on a variety of things like roses and lilies and pillars and pools and paths and stars and suns. Each one of those things is a symbol and part of a kind of a universal symbolism that is present in much of what we do. I mean, religions, politics, spirituality of various kinds, philosophy, all use symbolism in their work, and the symbols are pretty much used across the board, and tarot simply borrows a good deal of that symbolism, puts it in pictures, and presents it to us in its own particular way. I mean, tarot has its own way of revealing those things and using them, but the actual symbols themselves are pretty much the property of the human race. And so anybody looking at the book would find it, I think, pretty interesting, regardless of whether they knew tarot or not.
So you brought up crowns, pillars, the rose, and the lily, and I'm very interested. Can you choose one of those symbols or two and tell us how you go into looking at the universal meanings of these symbols?
Well, let's say, for example, if you take a symbol like the crown. And the crown is a pretty universal symbol. Every monarch who has ever been around has been crowned in one way or another. In fact, I think for the most part, you can't really become a king or a queen unless you're crowned. The crown is a symbol of monarchy, and it's a symbol of the divine right by which a monarch rules. The idea of the crown is that it's a circlet. It's a circle that surrounds the head. It's a kind of a ring that you place on your head that marries you to what is highest in you and what is highest in the world and allows you to work for the common good of your people. So when you're crowned, not only do you take on the authority of a king or a queen, but you take on the responsibility to do the best you possibly can with both wisdom and power to make sure your people thrive and prosper. So that you can see in tarot in many places. There are any number of crown figures in tarot, and the crown bequeaths on all of them that particular combination of authority and responsibility. So that's a way in which, if you focus, if your attention when you're looking at a card is caught for some reason by a crown, if that's what catches your attention in a reading, you can assume that the crown is speaking to you with its particular meaning and giving you the indication that you should follow that thread in your conversation with your querent.
The cards that I'm aware of or thinking about this very minute that have images wearing crowns, there's kings and queens in the court cards, and the emperor and the empress in the major arcana cards. They all have beautiful crowns of one sort or another. They do.
And there are lots of cards in the majors that have crowns, and there are cards in the minors that have crowns as well, like the four of Pentacles. Each one has the same implication. Now there are variations of that implication. Clearly, justice doesn't have the same implication as a king. They're different, but the implication of authority, truth, benefit, and responsibility remain the same. So even though there are variations in the theme from one card to another, and the context of the question would have an effect on that as well, the crown itself produces that direction of thought and gives you a way to go forward when sometimes you might be stuck for a reason or a motivation or perhaps a direction to take the conversation in. So you probably, yourself occasionally, every reader kind of gets stuck a little bit. There will come times when 2 cards or 3 cards or 4 cards will show up in a spread and you can't quite figure out how to put them together. What's the story that ties them together? And oftentimes, bits and pieces of symbolism, things that are the same in 2 cards, or things where one symbol leads to another or is connected to another, may be the way to tell the story of the relationship between those cards in a reading. It can be very helpful.
If you saw a card that had an image with a crown, and it was sitting next to an image that had, you brought up the pillars. So what about combining crowns, and pillars?
Well, let's say, for example, you have a card like the Hierophant, which is the equivalent of a spiritual leader of one kind or another, oftentimes assumed to be a pope, but not necessarily. In any religion, there will be a Hierophant, a person who leads various religious rituals and imparts, religious knowledge and esoteric material. A Hierophant is crowned and has that authority, the authority of God to teach, and the authority of the divine to impart wisdom and to present the seeker with truths and with challenges. And the Hierophant also has pillars, and the pillars are a description in this particular case of a doorway, a passage from outside to inside, from being what you might call a civilian to being a participant in the mysteries. So the Hierophant sits on a throne between two pillars. His crown gives him the authority. He sits on a throne,
but what?
He sits on a throne between two pillars.
Oh, between two pillars, okay.
Yeah, so on the one hand, his crown gives him the authority to teach and to regulate the passage from one condition to another. And on the other hand, the pillars tell you the place that you have to pass, the test that you have to go through, the approach that you need to make, and all the work and the effort that you have to put in before you're allowed to pass through those pillars into an illumined condition. So those pillars are actually a road to a mystery, to illumination of a mystery. And the crown of the Hierophant gives him the authority to guard that throne, to guard that pathway. So altogether, that combination makes a person aware that they have a big job in front of them. They have to learn, they have to be patient, they have to learn and they have to be patient, and they have to be devoted, and they have to be ready. And if they're all of those things in due course, but only in due course, will they be allowed to pass through the pillars into real knowledge.
Do you know any real-life Hierophants?
Well, you know what? In a way, everybody in the world of tarot, the teachers who teach it serve that function to some degree. Some more consciously than others, but all the people who teach tarot are essentially teaching mysteries to their students. They're teaching things that are not evident to plain sight. They're teaching things that need to be known for the benefit of the person who's learning it, and also for the benefit of people who will come after that person, who will be taught by them. So there's a lineage, and everybody who teaches tarot is the beneficiary of a lineage of knowledge that came before them, and they in turn impart that knowledge to the ones who come after them, so that the chain is never broken. And so from a certain point of view, every person who imparts the knowledge of tarot is a Hierophant in that particular universe. I don't know if that answers your question or not.
I thought it was lovely. I like to think of the Hierophant as the high priest.
Mm-hmm, yeah.
Because so many times when you're talking about a Hierophant, people they're kind of clueless, like, what do you mean? But if you say high priest, it becomes more clear what the card is about. And then,
well, actually, Hierophant, I'm not sure. I don't remember exactly. There are different versions. If you put the word hiero, Hiero, in front of a number of different words, you get slightly different meanings. But if I understand,
hieroglyphics.
There's a hieropomp, and there's various other characters like that. But the Hierophant, as I understand it, is somebody who leads his flock to wisdom.
Okay, we're going to be back with our special guest right after this coming commercial.
It's hard to listen to the news without realizing we're living in volatile, unprecedented times. Yet never has there been such an opportunity to transform the human condition. As old structures fail, where can we find the guidance to co-create a better way? Find Your Path Home is an ever-evolving, leading-edge information, education, and healing resource center designed to support and guide you on your path to unity and enlightenment. Based on sound principles employed by shamans worldwide, we provide techniques that can support you through the current transitions, offering online shamanic classes, international long-distance shamanic healing sessions, complimentary Mission Evolution radio episodes and Stairway to Heaven TV vignettes, seminars, retreats, and much more. All of this can be found on findyourpathhome.com.
So I was watching the X Zone TV channel last night when I was abducted by aliens, and they kept repeating to me over and over again, simultv.com, simultv.com.
What's simultv.com?
That's what I asked them. They had it written on the side of their UFO.
How do you spell that?
UFO.
No, I mean simultv.com.
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 Right. simultv.com.
Interesting that you were abducted by aliens in a simultv.com UFO last night.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah. Now that you mention it, I remember now last night I was awakened from a deep sleep. My great-grandmother was standing there. She said she'd come from the hereafter to tell me about simultv.com. She even spelled it out for me. simultv.com, sonny boy.
simultv.com.
simultv.com, sonny boy.
Wow.
Yeah.
Guys, you'll never guess what my psychic guru just told me.
simultv.com.
Exactly. Are you guys psychic too?
Of course.
We all know about simultv.com. simultv.com.
Hi, everybody. We're back, and my special guest tonight is Wald Amberstone, and we're talking about his book called The Secret Language of Tarot, and trying to learn more about what creates a secret, or what is the meaning of a secret language? What does it do? Thank you, Wald, for all of your great insights into the crown and the pillar.
You're welcome.
Do you consider doing readings of the tarot to be divination, fortune-telling, or what do you call doing tarot readings?
Well, that depends on what kind of a reading you're doing, because you can do a reading of all different kinds, as I'm sure you know. You can, of course, predict the future. You can give a person good advice. You can counsel a person on difficulties they're encountering. You can teach a person really interesting and useful knowledge that they're looking for. You can teach them about the nature of the world. You can give them, I mean, oddly enough, tarot is an organization of ideas that is a spirituality all of its own and a creation story in its own right. And it actually describes how the world came into being. It's a story about how the world came into being and how everything.
Oh, can you give us more insight into that?
Sure. Well, one of the things that happened with tarot was it starts off as a game. A long time ago, 600 years ago, more or less, tarot begins as a game, as I understand it. And this is a very rough history, but it'll serve for the moment. It takes on the quality of fortune-telling after a while because people are always interested in having their fortunes read. They want to know what's going to come down the road at them. And tarot became a source of that at a certain point in its history. And it progressed from there to an esoteric world. Eventually, the magical community of Europe, which was an intelligent and very well-educated community, which was using magic as a form of spirituality as a kind of counterpoint to religion, they undertook to make tarot into a jigsaw puzzle that turned all of their knowledge, astrology, alchemy, Kabbalah, Christian esotericism, Egyptian and Greek lore, it turned all of that into a jigsaw puzzle that fit together so that each one of those could contribute its knowledge and usefulness in a coherent way, and they used the tool of tarot to tell all of those stories at the same time. So the way you can use tarot depends entirely on what you want to use it for, and there's so many uses. So there's no one answer to that. The only thing is that each individual person who does readings has a tendency to pick one of those areas to specialize in: telling fortunes, giving advice, psychological counseling, magical practice, philosophical discoveries, all kinds of things like that. So there isn't any one answer.
Do you think that you have to be an intuitive to read the cards?
Well, an intuitive is a word that describes a person. Would you say that the word anintuitive is the same as intuitive? Everybody is intuitive to some degree. Anintuitive is somebody who specializes in the use of intuition for their work. So not everybody is anintuitive, I think, because I think the degree of talent, sheer talent that you need to be an intuitive, it varies from person to person, like any talent. But everybody's intuitive to some degree. And we teach. What I do mostly is teach. I don't read as much as I teach. And when I teach, I oftentimes work with people who are beginners. And when we get together in a classroom setting and we're doing readings with beginners, I make sure that a person who has never done a reading before and is coming to class for the first time gets to be the first one to do a reading for the crowd. We do a reading in the round where everybody contributes their insights into a given question and a given answer. And there is a lead reader whose job it is to take us in the direction that we need to go in. And I give that to a beginner. And unfailingly, I mean literally without fail, everybody who is a beginner approaches tarot through the pictures, through what the pictures tell them intuitively, and they do a beautiful job of doing a reading. So you can say that from that point of view, everybody is an intuitive. However, some people are better at it than others over the long haul. And some people rely on intuition exclusively, and that would make them literally an intuitive, as though it were a title instead of a description.
When you're teaching your classes, are you focusing on a path of astrology or numerology or the Kabbalah? Where do you come from?
I'll give you an example. We do a class every week that we call a Tarot Salon. And in it, people of varying degrees of skill and experience come together for an interesting and pleasant evening of conversation, tarot readings, lessons, and a little bit of food and drink. And the lessons each week when we give a class, each week it's different. I don't plan them in advance. I usually think about what I'm going to teach 10 minutes before we get to class. And then, because I've been doing this for so long, I just pull it out of my hat and we have a really fine time. So this past week, we did a class on timing using astrology in tarot. And it's a very precise and very interesting path. It's very consistent, internally consistent, and it's very useful, and it works like a charm. So we talked about the ins and outs of astrology as it pertains to timing. And then at the end, we did readings about various questions that people had using the issue of timing as a fulcrum. And it worked so beautifully that everybody was magnificently impressed. They were really impressed by how good the system was. Now, next week, we'll be doing something entirely different. We'll be either working with with another piece of the knowledge system, which could be anything from Kabbalah to alchemy to God knows what, or we could do something much more intuitive, or we could do something magical. We could do journey work. We could do meditation work of various kinds. We could do it. There's all kinds of ways that you can use the cards to get answers. And so you can do anything you want with them. There's no one thing to do. And it's so much fun to vary it from time to time. And the students get a big kick out of it. They're always being surprised by the kinds of things they discover they can do.
For a person who is taking your class, are they going to be expected to learn astrology and timing as one of the foundations for becoming a reader? Or are you just kind of... No?
The thing that I do is present them with material that is interesting. And my understanding of tarot, first of all, there is something that people should know if they don't already know it. Once upon a time, not too long ago actually, 10, 15, 20 years ago maybe, there was the sense in a certain part of the tarot reading population that there was what you could call one true tarot. There was a way that tarot was, there was something you could do with it, there was a science to it, and there was one way to do it. And the people who knew that way would tell everybody else what to do. And little bit by little bit, it came to be understood that everybody was different, that people used tarot in a different way, there were different techniques and different approaches, and it turned out that there was not one true tarot. So everybody learned eventually that there were interesting things to be learned from all sorts of people, and it became much more eclectic and much less rigid. So now when people get together to learn tarot, at least in our classes, they get a smorgasbord. They get a wide variety of things to pick from, a wide variety of things to do. They learn all sorts of interesting techniques and all sorts of interesting knowledge base. And then they take away from it what they want to. Whatever is useful for them is what I like to give them. And I'll tell them what I know, and I'll tell them what I do, make it as interesting and fun for them as possible, and then they will take it away and do with it whatever they please. And at the very least, they will have been introduced to something they would have had no opportunity to see before. Then it's up to them.
I love the phrase, I tell them what I do. So would you be willing right now to tell us what you do? Like, where are you coming from? Where are you going when you're using the cards? What do you do?
Well, you know what? I have been working with tarot for 60 years. That's a long time. More than a lot of my friends have been alive. And there's a never-ending stream of things to learn. It's just like literally an ocean that you can't possibly ever get to the bottom of. So my particular pleasure is a kind of magic. And magic is one of those words that people use in different ways, but I'll tell you what it is. And maybe because of the name of this particular show and the bent of it, the direction of it, it's not a bad thing to talk about. Everybody's got a different interpretation or a different, kind of definition of magic. And from my point of view, magic is fishing in the ocean of mystery that surrounds the island of reality. As far as I'm concerned, the ocean of mystery is a great deal bigger than the island of reality. We live in a little tiny piece of the universe, and we're constantly surrounded by mysteries of all kinds, physical mysteries, mental mysteries, emotional mysteries, things of all sorts. And a magician goes out into those waters, perilous as they may be, to fish and hunt and come up with things that nobody has seen before and bring them back for everybody to look at and be amazed at. And that's basically what I do. I'm always looking for something new. I'm looking for something I've never seen before, never done before, and then coming back with it and examining it and do a kind of an anatomy test on it. I'll put it on my magical table and cut it up with my magical scissors and see what kind of insides it's got. And then I have the great fun of producing it for my friends and my colleagues and my students and showing them something they haven't seen before. That's my greatest pleasure. Otherwise, I have to teach them what I already know. And after a while, even for me, that gets boring.
Well, 60 years of doing something that you can see how to create new insights and come up with new possibilities and teach people new things instead of relying on what you've already learned or where, the path that you've been coming down for how many decades. That's pretty impressive, Wald.
Well, there used to be, I can't remember the word for it offhand. The word escapes me. But there is a kind of person who used to be a kind of a universal talent, somebody like a Da Vinci or somebody like that. I can't remember the word for it, but there is a word for somebody who is expert or good at any number of skills and knowledge bases. And so if you're an artist, for example, you may paint, you may do music, you may do sculpture, you may do architecture and military science and God knows what else. All of those things coming from a basic curiosity about the world and in the possession of a number of key universal laws and features that allow you to expand.
Okay, Wald, we're going to have to finish this train of thought in a little bit because we're going to break right now. We'll be back shortly with our great guest, Wald Amberstone.
How would your life change if you could develop the business and personal skills that you need in order to make more money? Do you want to learn how to achieve your big life goals faster? Then go to findhiddenmoney.com and get the Goal for It online course. The course teaches you how you can set and achieve your biggest goals while completely overcoming the roadblocks to your goals so that you can realize your dreams and imagine more success. Go to findhiddenmoney.com.
Memorable dynamic presentations are a not-so-secret weapon in the business world. Do you have a powerful message that must be shared, but you haven't found a way to deliver that message? Do you want to be known as a top public speaker who gets amazing results? Are you ready to create and deliver your powerful message? Thomas Hides can help you create and deliver your speech to get the results you desire. Visit iconquality.com.
Did you expect your business to flourish, but instead it plateaued or didn't get off the ground yet? Would you like to achieve massive goals and discover new sources of income within your business? When you're ready to experience that type of success with fast results, Cindy Hendricks is the business coach for you. Her work with entrepreneurs and business owners has been life-changing. To get you and your business where you want to be, go to imaginemoresuccess.com.
Has the fear of public speaking stalled your business or personal life? What would you give to develop and maintain supreme confidence? Have an invaluable private program to always perform at your best. Imagine how you would feel. You can have all that and so much more today with Thomas Hyde's life-changing course called Number One Fear Unleashed. Visit numberonefear.com and be liberated from your fear of public speaking.
Hi, everybody. We're back with Wald Amberstone, co-creator with his wife, Ruth Ann, of the Reader Studio in New York City and author of the book called Secret Language of Tarot. And I am very curious because he's bringing up so many good insights about reading the Tarot. I would love to ask you, Walt, how did you learn to read the Tarot?
Well, back in 1959, which is when I picked up my first tarot deck, I had never heard of tarot before, never seen it before, and I stopped into what in those days is called a head shop, which is relatively a new phenomenon. And I stopped into this head shop where you could buy rolling papers and bongs and stuff like that. And they had, in addition to that, as part of the counterculture of the time, they had a couple of tarot decks. And I looked at it and I said, wow, that looks really interesting. So I bought one. And it came with a little white book. It was a Tarot de Marseille. It came with a little white book. And it didn't have much information in it of the kind that would be useful. I was used to dealing with games and play as symbolic tools from my earlier work with my father. So I picked up the tarot deck, and I was perfectly happy to experiment with it. And at the time, there were really no books. I mean, Eden Gray was going to publish a book or two later on. Pretty shortly after 1959, I think a couple of books came out. And then in the 60s, there was a proliferation of decks, and a couple of books came out. And then shortly after that, Mary Greer and Rachel Pollack came along to teach. And all of us were at the point where we were experimenting and doing the best we could with what we had. And all of us were smart, all of us were competent, all of us were having a lot of fun, and all of us found tarot to be a very, very stimulating tool. And because tarot is so well organized, because it has such a clear, comfortable structure, not only of pictures, but names and numbers and ideas, you could put those things together in all kinds of interesting combinations. So basically, what you're talking about is original creative effort. Every one of the people who taught tarot in those days had to work with what there was available to them. The books that came later on that explain the traditions of, esoteric tarot, they didn't come along until considerably later, as far as I know. There were people who studied esoteric tarot, but unless you were a member of a secret organization, there was no way to know those things. So we just pottered along in our own way, built our own traditions, said our own things, had our own thoughts, and taught our own classes. And we did readings and stuff and had a great time with it. And because the intuitive part of tarot is so easy, you could do readings right from the start. I remember going to parties in New York. There were times when there were parties that were available on weekends that you could come to, the public could come to. They advertised them. And for a small amount of money, you could join a party. And I used to go to those things and had a great time with them, and I used to sit there and read tarot for people. And I discovered that it was, in quotes, a great chick magnet. I got so much interest in the girls.
Chick as in female, women.
That's right, exactly. I know it's politically incorrect.
I wasn't sure if you were talking about the farmyard or something.
No, I was not talking about attracting chickens, no. So anyway, it's a holdover from another time. And remember, Cooch, you'll have to forgive me, it was another time. And that's an interesting thing about tarot. Tarot reflects the time and the place of the people who live in it. Tarot evolves. It doesn't stay steady. Tarot now is not the tarot of 50 years ago. And the tarot of 50 years ago isn't the tarot of 100 years ago. And I when we were talking about coming together to do this show, I had mentioned to you a little formula that I had thought of that you found interesting, which was the idea that here I am, a 20th century person, teaching a 19th century discipline to a 21st century audience. It's a very interesting combination of things. The sensibilities involved they spread the gamut. There's a huge difference between the sensibility of a person born at this time a century ago and through the middle of the 20th century and on into now. The way the world thinks, the way the world feels and sees is reflected in the kind of tarot that is produced. It's reflected in the kind of skills that are used, It's reflected in the images that are used. All sorts of things have changed in tarot. So I can say chick in relation to tarot because at the time that was what was done. That was what was said. That was what was felt. And I hope you'll forgive me for that.
Oh no, I'm going to call a lawyer and
oh dear. Yeah,
sign up the Times. You know, oh my God, I've just been so you're insulting our audience. Oh my God, Wald. No, I'm kidding you. I am so kidding you.
I know. But you know, really, it's not. It's a really serious thing. Actually, the times do change, and tarot changes with the times. And about 20 or 30 years from now, when the kids who were born this year or last year grow up and pick up their own decks for the first time, it'll be a different thing yet again. There is no stasis. It doesn't stay still. It moves with the times. And we don't really know what tarot is going to be like in 20 years.
Well, I'm just so happy that I've been reading tarot cards for my entire life, and I've been able to watch all the different dramas and how the different political events are kind of changing how people are more open and more receptive, and now it's going backwards again. I'm like, oh gosh! I mean, it's so interesting to see how people are affected by our environment, and that affects the tarot. I have a really loving heart-to-heart question for you. You were talking about teaching people to read the tarot. What would be your greatest gift you could give everyone listening to you right now to help them learn to read the tarot?
I would say basically pay attention, and rather than talking, spend more time listening. If you listen to the cards will speak to you. They'll speak to you either with the knowledge that you've already obtained from them, or they'll speak to you through the pictures and the images purely intuitively. But what you need to know, they will tell you. It's not so much a matter of extracting knowledge from them or information from them. It's not like taking an orange and putting it in an orange juice squeezer and getting the orange juice out of it. It's allowing the thing to talk. So if you listen and it talks, you'll probably do an extremely good job. No matter what you hear when you hear it, if you're listening to the cards, they will speak to you and tell you the truth.
That sounds like an intuitive reading.
It's very much an intuitive reading. However, it's intuitive only in the sense that everything you know, your life experience, everything you've been taught, everything that you can think of comes into play when you do a reading. So if you have a knowledge base of tarot, if you know some esoteric material, if you know some astrology, some alchemy, etc., you can bring that to bear in the same way that you would bring to bear any information you have that comes from the pictures. Anything you know will be reflected back to you from tarot, because tarot is a mirror. And if you look at it and listen to it, it will speak to you and it will tell you what you need to know based on the things you have available to bring to it.
So it's almost like interpreting a dream if you have images in your dream.
Just
because
like that.
Dreams are symbols. Just to look at a card and the different symbols that are on a card and let your mind just play with those visual images. Right,
exactly. The thing is, when you're dealing with tarot, you're dealing with symbols. No matter how you work it, even the pictures, even though they're visual symbols. And the job of a symbol is to remind you of a truth. And when you're allowing tarot to speak to you, you're allowing its truth to come out in one way or another. So whatever you have available to you in the way of information, knowledge, skill, talent, is going to come back to you from that mirror. And it will tell you something that's true. The only thing is, it's not so easy. It's a lot easier to say that than it is to do it, because people don't trust themselves as a rule. So I imagine you yourself, Cooch, who've done readings for a very long time, have learned to trust your intuitions, you've learned to trust your vision, you've learned to trust your experience, and you've learned to trust the cards. So when you speak, I imagine it comes out pretty good.
That's my intention. I don't like to waste words, and when I work with the intention of trying to bring something of value to the moment, because I don't want to waste my client's time and I don't want to waste my time. So I really try to find whatever kernel of insight I can find to make the moment rich.
Yes. Yeah, that's true. That's a style, by the way. You know, there's a tendency nowadays to join tarot reading to counseling and to what do we call life coaching. I mean, are you aware of that?
Oh, I keep seeing it, yes.
Well, the reason for doing that, apparently, as I understand it, is to bring those two disciplines together, the coaching and the tarot reading together, to produce a kind of a professionalism, to produce something that extends beyond the moment, so that you can have a relationship with a client over a period of time the way a therapist would. Because some things don't come to light the first time you look at them. They take a little probing and a little depth and a little patience on both parties' part. So that combination allows a reader to have a long-term relationship with a client over many readings. So it's a little bit different and just as valid, but of a different style.
That links with tarot and psychology and
That's
working
correct.
more as a therapist or a counselor with the cards. I really feel like there's a division between what has come from the past with the cards and card reading and what you're just talking about, trying to do more extended time with people using the cards. I think there's value in both, but I love the wild, free. Don't pin me down. Don't make me make more appointments with you. Let's just let's have our intense, loving moment where the past, the present, and the future. We just nail it in this moment. It's kind of.
Yep. Yeah, and the thing is, you can definitely do that. Clearly, you can, and I think probably that is the majority of the way tarot is used in the world today, and probably always has been. It's just that it's not the only one.
Oh, you know what? We're moving towards a commercial break. We're going to be back with our special guest, Wald Amberstone, in just a minute.
If you are looking for a safe, zero-calorie, natural option to the harmful artificial sweeteners on the market today, Just Like Sugar is what you're looking for. Just Like Sugar is a wonderful natural alternative for those health-conscious people who choose a calorie-restricted diet with a great, pure, sweet flavor that tastes just like sugar. Just Like Sugar is a great natural option for people suffering from diabetes and may be useful in restricted diet programs where standard sugars are not allowed and does not cause a laxative effect of some other sweeteners. Just Like Sugar comprises a perfect blend of chicory root fiber, natural calcium, natural vitamin C, and Just Like Sugar's sweetness comes from the natural flavors from the peel of the orange. Just Like Sugar is a natural alternative to harmful artificial sweeteners and will change the way that you believe all natural sweetener products taste. Just Like Sugar is available at your local Whole Foods markets, Wild Oats markets, Henry's, Sun Harvest, and many other fine natural food stores in the U.S., Canada, and worldwide.
They are here, and they've been here for thousands of years, making their presence known in the shadows. They might be seen by a lonely motorist on a deserted road late at night, or by a frightened and confused husband in the bedroom he is sharing with his wife. But who are they? What do they want? Why are they here? Perhaps most concerning, has the government been aware of their presence all along? The new book by Ellie Marzulli, UFO Disclosure, the 70-year cover-up exposed, delves into the world of UFOs. Can full disclosure be soon? Order now to receive a free hour and 37-minute DVD on the UFO phenomenon. UFOs are real. Get both the book and the DVD, a $40 value, for only $19.99. To order your book and DVD today, go to lamarzulli.net. That's LAMARZULLI.net.
You have heard of the X Zone? Now watch it on Simul TV, plus 500 video games, live TV channels, free video on demand, worldwide, and more. Does this sound like tomorrow's television? Well, it is, but you can have it today, right now. It is Simul TV. Simul TV offers what the others only wish they could provide. 15 exclusive channels like X Zone, sci-fi, and horror. We are worldwide. No other provider offers that. 500 built-in video games. No need to have an extra expensive system. We have them included. Free video on demand, live streaming events from around the world, interactive online network, and much more. Tomorrow's TV today. Simul TV. Sound too good to be true? Well, it's not. You can have Simul TV today. Sign up at simultv.com. Do it today.
Hi, everyone. This is Cooch Daniels talking with my special guest, Wald Amberstone. We're talking about the secret language of Tarot, which is Wald and his wife Ruth Ann's book. Wald, I have a question. Do you have another book coming out, or are you working on another book? You have such a wealth of information for people.
It's so funny. I have probably 2 or 3 books that could be written at any time. The only problem with it is I have so many things to do. I can't even imagine how I did this one. When I look at it and I read it a little bit, because we were doing the show, I kind of picked it up and was reading through it and stuff, and I can't even imagine how I had the energy to make such a thing happen. So the books are possible, but whether I'll have the strength, the energy, the fortitude, the patience, to make one happen, that's a big question mark. I don't know. We'll see. But if I do, it'll be really interesting, I can promise you.
I know it would be really interesting. That's why I'm hoping you're going to do another book.
We'll see. I don't know.
I know
I don't have an actual plan.
Well, I have a plan for you. You're writing for your students in China. You're teaching a year-long course to students in China. Isn't that right? Or
Yep. Yep.
So how about taking all of your lesson plans and making them into a book?
I can do that, and I've actually thought about doing that. And it is the easiest one for me to do because the material has already been written, and it simply has to be organized, edited, and put together in a book format. So I could definitely do that, but we'll see. It could be. And if I do, you'll find a very interesting process all around. There are things that are said in that course that have not been said before, and things that have been said before but will be said in a different way, so that the light of a different kind is shed on the matter. So everybody will see it. If it comes to pass that way, we'll find a new statement, possibly of old matters.
Well, talking about secrets, like the secret language, you just said that there are some new insights. Is there any one of those that you could share right now that you could let us?
Well, yeah, I could do that.
Have a sneak peek.
There is one area that I'm exploring at the moment that I have not. I came across a piece of esoteric lore that was simply a kind of a simple, quick statement. And I've been exploring the possibilities in it. I have not seen any work done on it in terms of exploring it and amplifying it, but it's really fascinating. There is a group of the first 7 cards of the major arcana, not including the Fool, starting with the Magician, going from the Magician through the Chariot. Each one of those cards describes what is called the function of consciousness, something that makes a human being human, a quality that human beings have or that human beings share that are exemplified by those 7 cards. And it's absolutely fascinating what you can get out of that. I'll give you just a small piece of information. The function of consciousness of the Magician, which is the first of those cards, is called attention. The quality and ability to pay attention is what makes a human being human, or the very first thing that does. And what you can get from that one quality of attention is spectacular. When you've explored it, you can see the power and why it is that power is associated with magic and the Magician. And each one of the 7 cards has a quality like that. And the combination of them all is so rich that it's like stumbling on King Tut's tomb filled with jewels. Something that's
Ooh, what a beautiful image.
Yeah, it's like this fabulous treasure that's been hidden away behind a simple wall, a wall of ignorance, a wall of silence. And once it's explored and opened up, it'll be like a whole new wealth of possibility.
Well, that was absolutely lovely. And I've 2 things came up for me. One is the importance of positive thinking about your writing and your ability to make your next book happen. Mm-hmm. And it was interesting to me that you were talking about the magician, because I had come up with a little meditation for my audience, and I was going to be focusing on the magician. And the magician is the number one card in the major arcana. It's a very important card because it represents the beginning of the tarot on many levels. And so, Wald, I'd like you to stay online, and I'm not sure how long this meditation is going to go, but it's quick. But hopefully we get to check in with you afterwards and have another minute to say goodbye to our audience together. So right now, I'm changing gears, so hang in there with me, everybody. This is a meditation for insight and for personal benefit. And if you could take just a minute to kind of just settle into being quiet within yourself, and imagine that you're holding a magic wand. You're going to need to close your eyes and maybe take a deep breath or two. But now imagine yourself holding a magic wand, and allow images or words to spontaneously come into your awareness, your mind, your third eye, and think about how you want to use your own personal magic wand. The magic wand being the strength of your will and your wisdom combined and focused on something that's important to you. You don't have to see images in your mind, but just think about what images, if you don't see pictures in your mind, just think about the words that are important that will allow you to use the power of your personal magic, and how you want to direct your magic wand or what you would like to manifest. And just let your associations flow spontaneously, and let your mind seek the most important message that comes from deep within yourself, and how you can use your personal magic to create something of benefit for your life at this time. If you have tarot cards, you can even pull out your magician card and let that visual image help you connect with your personal magician. And if we were doing a class, I would just say we're going to be quiet for a couple seconds and let this kind of sink in. But here we are on a radio show, so silence is deadly, and we need to continue talking. But let that meditation be something that you give yourself. It's a gift you can give yourself to help you connect with your personal magic. My gift that I've given myself tonight was having Wald Amberstone as my guest on this show. This is my first show, and it was just such a rich show for me personally. I really got a lot out of our conversation, and I thank you so much, Wald.
You're more than welcome. It was a real pleasure.
What's your next big tarot adventure?
Well, the next thing that's coming up is Reader Studio, which comes up every year, and which requires an enormous amount of attention, work, detail, energy, and stuff. But it's something we know how to do, and when we do it, man, talk about a piece of magic.
Well, I've been to it a number of times, and it has to be really magical for me to leave my little nest on the west coast of California and come to the Big Apple. It's very, very powerful.
Yeah, we get people from all over the world, literally, and it's always a pleasure to have a contingent from elsewhere. It actually covers the globe pretty much, and we have people literally from everywhere, and it's so much fun. The experts, the beginners, the people who are enthusiastic learners, and the people who are enthusiastic teachers. The learning process, the enthusiasm, the
brainstorming,
everything it did. It's a mashup of so many positive energies, and the energy itself is so high that I've heard reports, and I can attest to this personally. It takes a month to come down from the event,
or even more, because you just kind of float high on all of the people that you meet and the connections that are made. And I'm going to be a shameless self-promoter and say that one of my more recent tarot books called Tarot at a Crossroads came from people like Wald and talking with Wald and being inspired to put ideas down on paper. So Wald, you inspired me and Victor to write Tarot at a Crossroads, the unexpected meeting of tarot and psychology. So I'm trying to inspire you to write the next book for us. What comes around goes around. You're inspirational.
All right. Fair's fair.
Suck it up, Wald. You need to write another book.
Yeah, I know I do. Well, we'll see.
You need the art of positive thinking, as we just recently heard. Think positively.
I am going to do that. I really am. I'm aware of the importance of doing that.
Well, I'm aware of the importance of you getting another book out. So I'm really
sounds like a plan.
I'm voting for you.
Thank you, sweetie. I will follow your advice. See there, you've waved your wand in my direction and made me do stuff.
I'm making you. I'm just trying to, invoke your magician to like.
Right, so when I do a forward,
we need another book from you.
When I do a forward or an introduction or whatever, or an acknowledgement to the book that's going to come out, I'm going to say it's all your fault.
Yeah, and if they don't like it, they can come after me.
That's exactly right.
But I know they'll love it. They'll love it. I'm sure of that. Well, thank you all for listening. I hope you tune in next month for my next show, and we'll talk about that when we have time to meet again. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Wald.
Good night.
Good night. Be inspired.
Little children aren't the only ones afraid of the dark. Millions of soldiers return from war zones with PTSD, anger, frustration, fear, and loneliness, much of which surfaces during the darkness of the night. You have the chance to change the lives of these American heroes. Songs and Stories for Soldiers.us provides free MP3 players for these men and women. With a list of 3 million songs in 16 different styles, 100,000 audiobooks, and 30,000 old-time radio programs, every veteran can find something to soothe and comfort them at no cost. All our players contain an 8-hour audio program designed to help veterans fall asleep. With 1,500 plus vets now participating, it's our goal to deliver 10,000 audio players this year. Go to our website at songsandstoriesforsoldiers.us. Help us help a veteran make it through the night.
Whether you're a skeptic or a believer, join me, Rob McConnell, as together we'll investigate the world of the paranormal and the science of parapsychology here on the X-Zone Radio TV show on XZBN and the X-Zone TV channel on Simul TV. Since 1990, the X-Zone Radio TV show has been the place where people dare to believe and dare to be heard. Together, we'll investigate UFOs, aliens, ghosts, Bigfoot, psychic phenomenon, lake monsters, conspiracy theories, government cover-ups, the truth embargo, alien abductions, ESP, haunted locations from around the world, and so much more. With over 28 years of broadcasting and more than 4,500 individual guests, the X-Zone is truly a place where fact is fiction and fiction is reality, as evidenced by the credibility, integrity, and professionalism of the guests that we bring to our international audience. If you have seen a UFO, had a close encounter, seen a ghost, Bigfoot, lake monster, or a story that you would like to share or have investigated, contact me, Rob McConnell, by sending me your email to xzone@xzoneradiotv.com, or you can call toll-free 1-800-610-7035, extension 143, and on Skype, X-Zone Radio TV. For more information on the X-Zone Radio TV show with yours truly, Rob McConnell, visit www.xzoneradiotv.com or www.xzonetvchannel.com or simultv.com and xzbn.net. Until next we meet here in the X Zone from our broadcast center and studios in Hamilton, Ontario, Canada, always remember, X Zone Nation, keep your eyes to the sky and your heart in the light.